eco car. He lives an eco life. So we're going to talk about lots of eco stuff. Please join us. We will be right back.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, thanks for joining, everyone. Today we have Iain Davey. Thanks so much for joining, Iain.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, thank you.
Now you've moved in there. How many years ago now?
This was we bought the land in 2011. We completed the house build in 2013.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you've been living in it once it's finished, about 7 years. But is everything finished or it's an ongoing process?
It's always ongoing, especially the garden project. Like planting trees, and then you plant trees where you think they'll be good, and then they get bigger, of course, and they get overcrowded. So we're still in the process of having to move stuff around a little bit whenever
Right.
possible.
Yeah. Well, let's step back a little bit. Originally, you're from the UK. Where about?
Well, I was born on a small island, Guernsey, which is a Channel island near France. So, but my parents now live in Devon, which is southwest of England. Yeah,
And
rural area.
and you said you when you were 13, you worked on a farm. You got interested in growing your own food. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that area is all kind of small scale mixed farming. So sheep, cows. Yeah, and yeah, I got interested in farming, and I worked on a farm every weekend, holidays. Yeah,
Nice.
great.
So you learned some skills. And then when did you come to Japan originally?
I came to Japan in 1994, so just before the earthquake, Kobe earthquake, actually. Yeah,
Straight, did you move straight to Kyoto where you are now or like the
that's right.
Shiga
Yeah, I
area?
was living in Kyoto, and yeah, we decided to we're always looking to move to the countryside, a bit more space. So yeah,
Yeah, nice. And you're teaching at Kyoto University, is that right?
Kyoto University of Foreign Studies, Kyoto Gaidai. Yeah,
And I saw that you're doing some sustainability focused projects with your students. Can you
that's right. Yeah.
introduce that a little bit? Something about
Well,
notebooks or
yeah, we did that. I set up an echo group. Uh, which isn't self-sustaining, ironically, at the moment, because the best students are usually the third or fourth years, and they just get going and then they leave, and then we've got to kind of start the whole process moving again. But we've had some successful projects. We've been running Earth Day for the last 2 years. This year, of course, there wasn't any event, but that was really popular, and that really engaged a lot of students, more than maybe the other projects we do. But yeah, we made notebooks out of recycled reused paper, and we were selling those for charity. So yeah,
that's
a
awesome.
few things.
I think education is often the missing link in Japan, that there's just not enough going on in terms of raising awareness about environmental issues on the education level. I love that in the elementary school that all the kids are encouraged to grow their own plants, right?
Yeah,
And bring it home during the summer holidays. I
yeah,
love that.
yeah.
But other than that, I would love to see groups of kids out collecting plastic waste next to the rivers and the ocean. I mean, this conversation about what we buy and what we waste is so important. And so I'm so glad to hear that you're doing that with university students, trying to raise awareness.
Yeah, well, almost every topic I teach environmental issues, and in the second semester I teach sustainable development. But almost after every topic, it always comes back to awareness is the key, because without awareness, there's no caring, and the people don't have a chance to do anything if they don't know that a problem exists.
Yeah.
And I feel education, not only education, I think the media in Japan kind of surrounds everything in cotton wool, and people don't really have a chance to actually be exposed to the real issues, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, definitely. And I do monthly cleanups, trying to get people to come out and just pick up a little bit. Of course, there's so little you can do, but it raises awareness. And then sometimes students will join and they'll say, wow, this makes me think about what I'm going to buy. I'm not going to buy that plastic bottle again, you know, because I just picked up 5. So it does help to have activities where they're engaging with the problem, and then
Yes.
it educates their consumerism, right?
Sure, absolutely. I think there's unfortunately a too much of a focus on the recycling aspect, which makes people feel okay about their consumption, and I don't think that really changes the situation. People still consume, but they feel a little bit happier about it. Maybe that's not the right way to
Yeah,
go. But
yeah,
yeah, doing beach cleanups and actually, seeing the results
yeah.
are more important, I think.
Yeah, I often get that, right? Like if we do a big beach cleanup, you have over 100 pet bottles that you get, pet drink bottles that you get from the ocean. And then
Yes.
I always post that on Twitter, and people always say, oh, I always think of pet bottles as being like 100% recyclable, but
Mhm.
it's really not, you know, and it often ends up in the waterways. So it's always good, especially for young people, to be using social media and to be sharing the reality. And I think that helps a lot,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. Yeah. That's one thing my group of students are doing much better than me. They're sharing stuff on their Instagram account because, yeah,
They're so good. They're so
they
web
are.
savvy, right?
They are. Yeah, they put in all these stuff that I don't know where they came from, and yeah, I'm
Yeah.
clue.
We
Yeah.
need to defer to them. They're the social media experts, that's for
Well, yeah.
sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I tell you, when every year a few students get engaged and they get caught up in the real seriousness of the issues, they really go for it, and they make a huge change.
That's
Just
awesome.
just a few, but it's just a few students. It's not a there's no tipping point yet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But then those few students can affect so many others. So
they do. Yeah,
hopefully there's a good effect there.
yeah.
Thank you for sharing the video of you and your wife and family were interviewed on TV. So we're going to show some shots from that. That was
Okay.
really, that must have been, how was that experience?
It was very interesting as my Japanese is terrible, so I was very reliant on my wife. But and she did a great. She's a natural performer, which is I'm from England. I'm kind of the opposite, bit reluctant. But the big eye opener was we were trying to talk about the insulation of the house and the fire, the why we had a wood stove that's carbon neutral and trying to get away from fossil fuel. We were not allowed. We were told black and white we were not allowed to talk about those issues. And
What?
the reason why was because the program was sponsored by Kansai Electric.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, that is a true story. So
Oh,
yeah,
wow. Yeah,
the
in the show I learned that you guys met while you were teaching. So she's also at Kyoto University?
Yeah, I know she works at the she works at another university in the off she's office staff in Ritsmaken University. Yeah, yeah.
But
So
also in Kyoto, yeah?
oh yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
So,
she's from Korea, is that right?
that's right. Yeah, she was
So
born in Japan, but from Korea originally. Yeah.
so you guys have a very multilingual, multicultural household.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you do that? What's the normal language? Is it all mixed or?
Well, pretty much they're absolutely bilingual. So they switch languages depending on the subject. So if they're talking about school, it's going to be in Japanese, and with my wife. But generally, 90% is just defaults to English. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I was talking with a bilingual, multilingual expert last week, and he's saying, that's so exciting for kids when they're around so many languages, and they just pick it up so naturally. You don't have to worry about exposing them to too much. The more, the
Yes.
better. I love that.
Yeah. Well, our mother-in-law is trying to teach them Korean now.
Oh, nice. Wow, wonderful. It's great to
We'll
get
see.
more
Yeah.
more people from the family involved. I love that.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, let's dive in because you've got so much great stuff to talk about with your house.
Okay.
How did you choose your house? Give us a little bit of background. How did you find it?
Well, the location speaks for itself. It's on the lake and it's in the countryside. Yet it's 40 minutes from Kyoto, so it kind of ticked all the boxes. We could still work in Kyoto, but live a more rural life with farm animals. Yeah, so that was the initial thing. It was the location. So after that, it had a pension, an old dilapidated pension on the site. So that offered us a chance to do a complete fresh rebuild, or half build, as they call it. And then I set out designing a house from, all the programs I've watched and stuff like that. So, yeah.
So describe the house inside and out. Outside, you have solar on the roof, and
Yep.
you also have a green roof.
Yes.
Right?
If you like it, would you like me to show you the green roof?
Yeah, please.
I mean, it's looking a bit poor because the weather, of course. Well, this is a very small one.
And tell us the benefits.
If you can see it.
Yeah, I can see it. The benefits of a green roof, of course, is to grow things, but also insulation, right?
Yeah, the shed where the main green roof is incredibly cool. It really is. It makes a huge difference. But also, of course, when it rains hard, you can see regular guttering. Instantly, there's water coming down. But for the green roof, it takes maybe 20 minutes for the water to seep down through the guttering. So it really shows the benefits of having natural kind of green dams, up in the forests, using the forests as dams and stuff like that for flood prevention. And of course, it supports biodiversity and looks good, I think.
Yeah. Can you take us through the process? I'm showing photos right now of the stages. So can you take us through the stages?
Well, the first thing is you have to make sure the weight bearing, is suitable, because when soil gets wet, of course, it's very heavy. So that's the first thing. Then you have various layers. First, waterproofing. Then I don't remember the order, to be honest. But then there's a layer of well, we use carpet, just floor carpet, which actually helps to hold the moisture in times when it's dry. Then you have large pumice stones to help drainage, and on top of that, a weed barrier to stop the roots penetrating too deeply or too strongly. And finally, you have a kind of a loamy, sandy soil. And most importantly, you have to choose the right vegetation. So I used a sedum. From England, I got a sedum green roof mix. So sedums are a bit like a cactus. They're kind of rubbery leaves. So they're very, very good at dealing with drought.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you don't need to worry about watering too much, you mean?
Don't. After a year, once the roots have matted, there's no watering actually, and that helps with weeding, because the weeds don't survive. So. Yeah.
How long did it take you to put the green roof together?
Oh, it's not long. It's really. I've done quite a few now, so it's it's just a day, a couple of days. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. And then once it's ready, once it's there, how much maintenance do you need to water it once a day, especially now it's so hot? Or
no, I haven't watered a single time this year. But when you first do it and the seeds are still growing, you do need to water like a regular garden. But the idea is that, if it's on top of a house, then some professional ones, they do have watering systems, but they shouldn't need watering. The purpose is that are self-maintaining.
Wow,
So, yeah.
wonderful. It's something I've thought about for ages. I have a shed like you, which I was thinking would be great to cover with a green roof. And like you, we have solar on our roof. But the shed might be something that I can do myself. Put it on. So
Sure.
I might try your concept, and it's going to drive my husband crazy. But it's so hot, and anything that can help insulate, because that shed is right next to our house, so it would help insulate inside as well.
Is it a? What's the pitch of the roof? Is it like?
It's very similar to. It's not a very steep grade,
Oh, that's fine then.
and it's not a huge area. My husband's really worried about insects, that it'll increase the insects. Did you find that? A lot of insects?
That's a good thing.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Anyway, I'll have to pick your brain a bit more detail when I start the process. But it looks like you used a carpet, but also you had to, of course, line it with plastic first.
Yes, we got that was the main expense, is the pond liner. It's a kind of a high grade pond liner, which
Okay.
we got from England again. Yeah, maybe I should mention when we did the house, the biggest part was sourcing things, because many things aren't available in this country. So we kind of hired a shipping container, and everything literally came over in one load, and that included pond liner.
I had an idea, but it might be too labor intensive. To take all the plastic bags that we pick up in the cleanups and line it with that, but it would be problematic because it wouldn't seal, right?
That's the key. Yeah, it's got to be waterproof.
Yeah.
Very important. Sorry.
Sorry, too bad. It was a nice idea. It's
Yeah.
so hard to think of how the heck we could use any of the plastic waste. You know, how could we reuse it without adding microplastics back to the waterways? Like, yeah, it's a problem.
The the most exciting solution I've seen so far is a TED talk about a plastic bank. So you pay with plastic. So particularly in I think about 80% of ocean plastic comes from developing countries. So the project works in those kind of countries, and they set up systems like schools where pupils will collect plastic, and then they pay for their tuition with plastic. The plastic is then sold on and used for creating products or, burning, I guess.
Wow. And I saw a project in India where they were collecting so many plastic bags, they were making plastic bricks that they found a way to push it down into bricks, and then building houses with that, so it's insulated as well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's major. You need a special machine, maybe.
Yeah, well, that was a big decision. These are the kind of decisions I had to make with the house. Should I have wooden frames, or should we have the plastic PVC? And I decided on plastic because, as far as I could see, it's either going to be burned in cars, or it's going to be locked in plastic frames, which ultimately could be recycled later on. And the life of the windows is much, much longer. So that was one kind of decisions I had to make regarding the house. Yeah. Trade-offs.
Yeah. Trade-offs, right? You have to make the best decision with what is available. Is all about sustainability, right?
Yeah.
So some of the other build, tell us about the build. What was in the video? You said the hardest part was the roof, making the roof.
Why was that? Well, the roof. Why did I say that?
Just because you had to rebuild the roof part, or insulation?
Not the roof. That's right, the ceiling.
Okay.
The ceiling, yeah, because we're having to put up the plasterboard and try and put in the screws at the same time. It's just terrible on the shoulders. So yeah, and this was in the summer, so it was, that was definitely the hardest part. Just
it looks beautiful. Your view from the house, you can see the mountains and the lake. Is that right? It looks amazing.
Yeah, I always think of it as the stereotype of California. You got the mountains in one way, and you got the ocean the other. Well, although this is not the ocean, but yeah, it's a nice feeling.
Beautiful. And I see that all the wood that you sourced is FSC certified?
As much as we could, yep. We couldn't, of course, we weren't going to bring all the timber from England, which could easily be sourced FSC, but most of it was FSC sourced. The floor downstairs was from New Zealand, and that was on a 23-year or so sustainable cycle, but it wasn't FSC, but it was a similar management system. Yeah.
When we've done remodel work, it's actually really hard to find builders that are willing to use Japan wood or FSC. A lot of the builders I talked to were like, what? What
Yeah,
is that?
that's
No, we import from rainforests in Indonesia and New Zealand. I was like, no, please
yeah,
don't do that. Yeah.
it's cheaper. Yeah, that's the thing. We had a good builder and a good architect who we know, so we could work with them, and they're relatively flexible in letting us do what we wanted. Just things like even putting a bathroom upstairs is, oh, that can't be done. Oh, well, it can. And not having a unit bath, but just building our own bathroom using a simple, things like that. So yeah, you do have to you are going against the flow in terms working with builders.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's right.
I saw that it was a existing building when you bought it, and you've reused the wood
That's right.
in the fireplace. Is that right?
As much all the decking, and unfortunately that was one of the examples using the builder. They weren't able to use the beams because there's a lot of trouble taking out individual nails, and it blunts the saws and a lot of problems. So we kept all the wood, and that's being used around the house, decking and stuff like that. Yeah. So yeah, we packaged up the whole building basically.
Yeah, and you've reused it. So, is that in the fireplace? You've reused it?
Well, we used like I say, mostly decking,
Mm-hmm.
and it's being used in the fireplace in terms of we burned some, yeah, because that couldn't be used in buildings. Anything could be used in building is being used for the fire. Yes, that's right.
And you're also, it seems like your main points of the reason this is called an eco house. Can you just give us the run through? What are the key features?
Well, I think the first one is its impact on the building process, where you're sourcing everything from. So we wanted to minimize concrete, for example. I tried to get carbon neutral concrete or carbon reduced footprint concrete. That was impossible. So that's the first stage, trying to minimize the impact during the build. The second stage, of course, is insulation and energy source, so to minimize running, how much energy we're using for the running. I think we produce about twice as much energy as we use, so it's a very efficient house.
Yeah, that's great.
So I tried to base it on the principles of passive house, but without the technologies. Passive house is very reliant on high technologies like heat exchangers, ventilation systems. So we did without that, but otherwise, in terms of windows, insulation, and natural airflow, that was kind of all based on passive house techniques, design. Yeah.
Yeah. And did you find, did you apply for the FIT system for the solar? Like, did you get paid back for solar that you sold to the grid?
Yes. That was in 2013. So we're locked in for 10 years at 41 or 2 yen a
Kilowatt.
watt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, kilowatt, sorry. Unfortunately, that's now down to like 11 or so. So the government isn't quite so gung-ho about supporting solar. Yeah.
It's a shame, isn't it? When we first got our system 12 years ago, we applied and we got it at a great rate. And so we paid off our solar system in 8 years if you compare what we were paying for electricity before and after, as well as the payback from the solar we sold. So it was a great system. I hope they bring it back.
Yeah. Well, I was watching one of your earlier sessions, and the guy, sorry, I don't remember his name. He mentioned about the life cycle of Japanese houses. I mean, if there was a simple law that solar should be fitted to every new house, like I think he said that, then yeah, we would.
Yeah, definitely. We need to incentivize people to make the investment, and then once they make the investment, they realize how beneficial it is financially and environmentally. So
Well,
Definitely.
again, it's back down to the awareness. People really don't, if they are aware that, okay, I don't have the money for this, it's a big expense, but if I borrow money to get it, I'm still going to make money and I'm not using any fossil fuels. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So some of the other features at your house, you're doing water catchment systems?
Well, around for the garden, everything is, yeah, we collect all the water, but in really serious times like now, I have to use hose occasionally. And the pond is hooked up. Half the pond is like a wetland area, and I have a system where I can divert the water into the pond, so it kind of filters through the plants. Not terribly successful. After about 3 or 4 weeks, it does start to smell, and I have to disconnect and let it catch up, let the plants catch up. So I basically need a larger area, I think, for it to work more efficiently. But yeah.
And how are the seasons? Is it pretty hot right now?
Oh yeah, 30, yeah, 34. Yeah, yeah. Of course, it's cooler. We're next to the lake. We do get breezes, which make a huge. Which this house really relies on breezes. So yeah, we always have the windows are open and yeah, natural ventilation. But the seasons are, of course, less snow than
Before,
snow seems to be down, and the local ski joe was had very little snow this year, almost no snow. So.
Yeah, it looked like you used to get a fair bit of snow. I'm showing your season's house photo right now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, this year was the worst, I think, so far. And typhoons, we've speaking to locals, the number of typhoons we've had over the last 3 or 4 years is really, and the severity. The whole beach was destroyed. Take like meters and meters of sand just disappeared, and that hasn't happened in living memory, according to the locals. So, yeah, quite a few changes.
And around the pond, it looks like you're using old roof tiles.
Yep, roof tiles, and the land is landscaped with car tires. So,
Yeah, I saw that, the tire garden.
yeah, which is now you can't see it. It's disappeared. The tires have disappeared. So.
Oh, because the plants have gone overgrown it. Nice.
Yep, take over completely.
So that's other feature of being sustainable living, of course, is growing your own food. It looks like
Yes.
in the gardens you have some covered areas, maybe for salads.
Well, mostly for the cold times, we have some windows, which yeah, so just to cover a few of the beds, but most of it's out pretty much. Yeah, but that's just for seedlings and yeah, maybe springtime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So we try and grow I like perennials because it's less work, of course. So I'm trying to encourage as many perennials, fruit trees and vines and stuff to grow. So kind of trying to use principles of permaculture a little bit. Agroforestry in the back garden is pretty much just trees, mature trees. And the vegetable garden area is mostly the front area. Yeah.
It looks like you have olives.
Oh yes, we have olives. Yes, which they're very fickle. Every 2 years, I think they produce.
Because I have a few olive trees and I've never had fruit. I'm hoping someday.
Yeah, it takes time. It takes quite some time. Yeah, we rescued those olive trees actually from a car park in Kyoto. They were basically dead, and I just took them home because they are very expensive olive trees, and they were quite big. But yeah, they survived, and they're doing okay now. So.
Wow, awesome. Yeah, I'm showing a picture of your olives on a plate, your tomatoes, you're making your own bread, you have goats, so you have yogurt and milk, right?
Right. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
How is it? Yeah, talk about the animals.
Well, that was one of the main reasons we moved here, space. When I think of space, it was animals. because I think, protein has the highest carbon footprint. So I felt if we could be almost self-sufficient in our protein, that would take a big chunk out of, our carbon footprint. So more than maybe vegetables. And so, yeah, we have goats, 4 goats at the moment. One is milking, a dairy goat. She produces about 3 liters of milk every day, which is a commitment. You have to milk every day. You have to consume the milk or cheese, yogurt, or freeze it, And we have chickens, so.
Yeah, do you ever sell any of the milk or cheese or yogurt, or is it just you
Am I allowed
guys?
to say? I'm not sure if I'm allowed. I'm not sure if it's strictly legal.
Well, if you pay
Yeah, we do.
tax on it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I wasn't thinking about that.
I'm assuming you're paying tax on it. Yeah, so the chickens supply eggs, and you also eat the chickens sometimes. I hear
Yes,
chickens are excellent pets. I've heard they eat almost anything from kitchen waste.
they do. Yeah, they do. They're very good. They will not eat. I don't know why. I haven't looked in, but potatoes are off the menu, and citrus, anything citrus. But otherwise, they'll eat almost anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a friend who had chickens, and when I visited her, we had a big plate of spaghetti, and there was spaghetti left over. She just threw it out to the chickens, and they loved it. I thought, I never think of chickens as liking spaghetti, but yeah, great.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But I heard back in the UK, they're not allowed, or there's regulations. You're not allowed to feed food waste to
Oh.
which is not a good idea, I think.
As long as it's vegetarian, as long as it's not other animals, right?
Well,
No?
yeah, we don't need. Occasionally, meat does come into the household, but generally they don't. But they will eat anything.
Mm.
They would prefer fish and meat, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah,
That's interesting.
yeah,
Yeah. I
and bone.
I hear, I mean, the image of a chicken is quite nasty, like they'll peck at you, but I heard chickens are actually quite sweet when they're your pets.
Yeah, they're constantly just whatever they do, clucking, I guess is the word. But the sound is quite relaxing because we got them just outside our kitchen. But roosters are generally very aggressive. So they don't last long.
So you don't sleep in then because you have chickens who are waking you up every morning, right?
At the moment, we don't have any mature cockerels. That's what I mean. They don't really last very long.
Oh, they're the ones that get eaten, you mean?
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, I mean, your kids are growing up very honest about where meat comes from, and I think that's part of the problem with processed meat, factory farming meat, is that it's too clean, but also it's too removed from where the meat actually comes from, right?
Oh yes, absolutely. I strongly feel if people are to consume meat, they should really be prepared to know where it comes from and maybe even be involved. Yeah, absolutely.
How do your kids feel when you choose a chicken to
It's
it must be
it's a,
hard.
no.
No?
They're actually maybe worryingly quite hard-hearted. Seriously. So
Wow.
we don't name the chickens, although one chicken does currently have a name, but generally they don't get named. That's the idea.
To help with that part of the process.
Yes.
Let's yeah.
Yes. Sorry.
No.
Two
Go ahead.
two daughters avoid. We got one 8-year-old, but the 2 older one, 12 and 14, they both watched me kill. So they're by request. They requested. So yeah, quite an education.
Yeah, well, it's good. They really understand it. I think
Yeah.
that's healthier to help process, right? What they're
Yes.
eating.
Yeah.
Let's yeah.
Yes.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
it's okay. No, it's okay.
Okay. Let's talk about insulation. Was that also imported?
Yes, it was. We used a product. It's called Super Quilt. It's quite easy to remember, but it's extremely efficient. And the best thing about it is very thin. So it's equivalent of about 28 centimeters of rock wool, I think you call it, or regular insulation. But it's only a centimeter thick, I think. But extremely efficient, and also it keeps out the sun, so it's reflective, which regular insulation doesn't do. So in the summer it helps a lot. So yeah. So I did
and you had go ahead.
I did quite a bit of research. Each kind of component of the house I would research for 2 or 3 weeks, then I would choose, then kind of have to move on to the next product or aspect of the house. But insulation was quite difficult to choose. Yeah.
Yeah, and including all of the remodel of the kitchen, all the new appliances and everything, and the solar. What do you think the total spend was? How much did you have to spend to remodel? Did you ever calculate?
Well, we had a budget, yeah. I mean, to be honest, if we just got a house, a kit house, a regular build house, this house is much cheaper. It's probably about, it's much cheaper. So we did. It could have been even cheaper, of course, if it didn't have the high-end insulation and triple glazing windows and stuff. But yeah, that is of course it was a consideration, but it wasn't. We tried not to cut back on that aspect of the house, the eco aspects.
And was it Akiya? Was it an abandoned house?
Yes, where the site is. Yes, that's right. It was pension. Yeah, old pension. So. And
it looks like in the pictures. I don't have any now, but it looks like the side of the house was facing the lake. That they didn't have the view.
I know.
In the original build. I couldn't believe that. So what you've done is really focus the view from the kitchen goes right out to the lake. The view from the front living room goes right out to the lake. You've really incorporated the natural views as part of the appeal of the house, right?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, to be honest, the location, if the lake was 90 degrees, then I think actually the house would be in a different direction, because the first priority really was the solar, the angle of the sun. And luckily the shore of the lake is south-south, south-south-east. So it's almost perfect. So that was the starting point of the design, was the angle of the roof, the large roof area, and the angle. And the house was to face, the front of the house was to face south as much as possible.
Wonderful, yeah.
That's and it also helps with the breeze, because the mountain lake breeze goes right through the house, basically.
That's fantastic. I grew up in Hawaii in kind of the mountains area, and we never had air conditioning. We always just had screens and the breezes coming through. And so if you can find a place where you can do that, that's fantastic.
Yeah. Maybe about 2 or 3 days of the year I get complaints from the family, but basically we survive. Yeah, no problem.
That's wonderful. Because a lot of the time in the UK, you don't even have screens on the windows, because people would never have the windows open. But recently it's been so hot. So maybe house design is changing, huh?
I hope so, yeah. And we stopped using the screens, actually. We realized the mosquitoes don't come in for some reason. But yeah, anyway.
That's great.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the inside of the house, because you have certain features which might be different from a typical Japanese house, like your pantry. I love your pantry.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I was determined to have a pantry. So the only mistake, that was one of the biggest mistakes of the house. The solar system inverter is located in the pantry, and that, of course, produces heat.
Oh.
So that is a big mistake, yeah. So, but otherwise, the pantry is insulated, and it has a window, a back-facing, north-facing window. So the principles of, the general principles of a cool room pretty much work out okay, yeah.
So you can buy a lot in bulk and use it as a storage place for all your family needs. I love that idea.
I mean, my image would be, my perfect image would be, all my lentils and hanging cheeses and yogurts, but no, it's not the reality, to be honest. It's full of Costco.
Well, at least you're buying in
organic.
bulk, which is
Yeah.
less packaging.
Yes.
Your kitchen is beautiful. The design of the kitchen with the island. You've got a chalkboard on the side. Describe your kitchen for us.
Well, yes. That was mostly my wife's domain. She wanted to do that. But yeah, and the chalkboard was her idea for the kids. Having one wall, you just paint it with a special paint, which is like a blackboard. And that was another mistake with the design of the house. We actually had a small window at the back of the kitchen. It's quite narrow. We've actually now changed that. We have a much larger window, and the air just rushes through now. So that was maybe another mistake in our design.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the kitchen was from Ikea, yeah, and about 100 boxes. So there's a bit of chaos there.
So
Yeah.
self-assemble IKEA. You had to do
Yeah.
everything. Oh my
Yes.
goodness.
Yeah.
Well, that
I mean-
saves you a lot of money, but it's also very lucky that you're quite handy.
Yeah, but it was it's just a difficult job.
Yeah, I'm sure. Any missing bolts?
Oh, there's lots. But it works. Yeah, there were quite a few.
Well, it looks like a beautiful kitchen, and I love the open plan. So
Yeah.
wherever you are in the kitchen, you can look straight out through the living room, straight out to Biwako. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well
But that
done.
was another principle of the design of the house. I wanted as much open planning as possible. The bedrooms upstairs, the children's bedroom, don't have walls. They have half walls. So again, the air can flow through. I thought it was quite important, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your toilet.
Oh, yes.
Is it a compost toilet?
It's a compost toilet, yeah. As a compromise, the upstairs toilet is a regular toilet, I have to admit. But downstairs, the toilet is a compost. So it looks like a regular toilet, but it has a kind of a pistol gun, just spray, high velocity water spray, just for cleaning the bowl. So it uses almost no water at all. So that drops down to a larger kind of container, which is basically a barrel, a drum, which you're supposed to turn every day. In reality, it kind of gets turned about once a week. But it's successful. It's been working since we started, and it produces a lot of very high quality, compost. So yeah, it's working very well.
Humanure, I think some people call it, right? Human manure. Humanure. That's what Kyle of the Permaculture Center calls it. So is there certain areas that you can use humanure and kind of away from the regular garden, or what's the theory?
I read that you're supposed to leave it a certain time to get rid of the pathogens, but I think I just use it on fruit trees. I just use it on the trees and vines. So I wouldn't put it. I just for other people's sake, I don't put it on vegetable garden.
So compare how effective it is, like compared to chicken manure or the other kinds. Do you notice a difference?
I would say, well, they say it's particularly good because it has so much variety of nutrients. We humans have a huge, we eat a lot and very high nutrient packed foods, which animals generally don't. Yeah, I mean, my goats are surviving on just grass and weeds. So I think in terms of that, it naturally would be very high, and it's such a shame that cities aren't using it as they used to fertilize farms around the cities. It's a huge waste of resources, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Going out into the sewer and the ocean.
It goes, yeah, but I'm certain it's not used in most countries for farming. That's for sure.
So does it require water? Do you need water system going through? Does it require energy?
No. There's different systems with an electric fan to help ventilation. There's various models, but I basically got the one that was all human power and no water.
And you got that from in Japan, or did you have to import?
Again, I imported I think it's called Sanmar is the company. I think it was Canadian, Sanmar. So yeah, that was the first thing to arrive. So we had the toilet before the house.
How much was it? Can I ask?
It was about maybe 200,000 yen.
Okay. Including importing.
Let's say 250. Yeah. But advice for any listeners: if you're going to import, do not order the hemp.
Yeah.
You know, you have to add stuff to it, sawdust so I just purchased a whole load of hemp, you know, because I thought, oh, great, industrial hemp, it's great, and it's a quality product. But when we had to go to the port, we had to have it tested, which was very, of course, nerve-wracking. Although you know it's industrial hemp, it's still a bit nerve-wracking. So I wouldn't recommend ordering bags of hemp.
A little bit stressful. Even though you see CBG oil, you see hemp products sometimes in Japan imported. Yeah, that's an extra stress for sure.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about water. So we talked a little bit about water catchment systems. You've got a pond. You also have, it looks like a big tub of water. Do you have fish in there?
I think we have a lot of baths around the garden, which we collect. I think it's about over 1,500 liters we collect. But I put fish in almost all of them because they help get rid of the mosquitoes. And even if you scoop out almost, there's still that much water left at the bottom, and then it's going to rain in a matter of days or weeks. So they do okay.
Yeah, great. So do you just use the water for the garden, or do you use it for like the toilet, or no, just the garden?
My original plan was to have a rainwater catchment reservoir upstairs and to have a toilet, the upstairs toilet run off that, but that couldn't be fitted into the plans.
Yeah.
The weight of the water, and it has to be above the toilet, and we don't have an attic. That was the main thing.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, that plan had to be put onto the burner.
Yeah, I asked about that as well when we did the remodel. Can I have rainwater going into the upstairs toilet or going into any of the toilets? But they said I would need like a chimney, a concrete chimney to support the rainwater tank because we have an old house, and they were worried about the roof caving in, which is, a decent concern. I appreciate that.
I mean, today, even brand new buildings, they're still not putting in these systems, which there's no excuse. We shouldn't be using drinking water for our toilets. It's just absurd, I think.
So that's the whole idea of using gray water, right? Is catching water, or even using wastewater from your kitchen when you wash the dishes, reusing that in some way, maybe in the toilets, maybe for washing the car. It's all a good idea. Water is not so expensive in Japan, but it's a great idea.
Well, I always try to tell my students that, well, I try to get them to discover the connection, but basically I'm teaching them that if you're turning on water, it's energy. How did the water get to your house? Where does it go? It represents energy in some form. So I think if you're wasting water, you're wasting energy. Yeah. So they don't really make that connection.
So if you were cut off from the grid, you would be able to have some energy because you have solar. You would have some water because you have rain catchment systems, and you have a working toilet. I mean, and you have your own food. So in terms of off-grid living, you're very close.
Yeah, in an emergency, we could live off-grid. My ideal would be to have the house off-grid, but that's not a reality, to be honest. But in any emergency, certainly we would, I think, survive a few days longer than few people around us.
Yeah. Do you know if that's allowed? Is off-grid living even allowed in Japan?
Yeah, I
don't know.
It is or isn't. I think again, purchasing the things you need to really make it work well, they're just not available. They're very difficult to source.
Right.
So that's one of the big problems. One thing I really want to do, and there's 2 summers now I've missed the chances to sink a well. But we've been told it needs to go down about 20 meters. So that's the next project.
That's
actually.
a big project. Get digging.
Yes.
That's a long way down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about your car. Biofuels. Very cool.
Oh yeah. Well, 13 years ago was kind of getting a family together. It was kind of the time to get a car as would be my first car, and electric vehicles weren't really around. So this was the only alternative I could see, which would make me feel okay. It was running it on waste oil, basically. It's actually not biodiesel. Biodiesel's chemically changed, and you need a lot of heat and equipment to produce it. So all we use is just waste. We collect waste oil and we filter it, and it goes into the car. And we've kind of modified the car. It's called a 2-tank system. So yeah, for anyone who needs to know, it's a WVO system, waste vegetable oil system.
And how do you collect it from like Japanese restaurants because of tempura oil, or?
Right. Yeah. There's a kind of a local farm. They call it Inaka Kombini, but it's basically just selling tempura and local farm produce, and so we get most of our oil from there. And there's another local restaurant just by the station near us, and we get the second lot from there. That's it. That supplies everything we need. Yeah, it's great.
Very good. What does it smell like? I've heard some people who use biofuel, they say it smells kind of like a buttered potato, or it smells like popcorn. What does yours smell like?
Yeah, most people say tempura.
Uh-huh.
Of course, in England, it would be fish and chips.
So I have an electric car now. So when I go up the hill, I don't have any guilt because I know there's no exhaust. So when you go up the hill, you must also have that guilt-free feeling a little bit. You're just spreading a nice smell of tempura.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. But it's still, ultimately, it's still a diesel car. It's kind of, yeah. So it's not a clean technology, but it's carbon neutral, and there are some pollutants it's actually reduced.
Right.
But, yeah.
So it does have emissions because of...
Oh, yes.
this. Oh, okay. Is it black? Like, is it as dirty as diesel?
I think this is what I do. I research stuff, and then I move on, and I forget everything I researched. But there's basically 2 main pollutants, SOx, I think, and NOx. I think it's the NOx is about the same somehow as a diesel car, but the SOx is the SOx is 0. So there's no losses, but there are quite a few gains. And of course, it's essentially carbon neutral. That's the main, for me, that's the main one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. Also, in the design, you have some sunroof design. I love the sunroof. Does it get really hot in summer, or it stays pretty cool?
Well, because of the insulation, it stays cool. Yeah, yeah. Do you mean the sunroof and what do you mean, for the house, or?
Yeah, in the house.
Yeah. Oh, yes. The skylights. Yes.
Skylights. Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, they're triple glazed, so they keep out most of the heat. But again, that's something I would recommend anyone who's doing a self-build would, if possible, include skylights, because a vertical, like a horizontal, well, a roof window takes in about 40% extra light than a vertical window, a regular window. So they really do lighten up any area significantly.
Yeah,
so,
it looks nice and bright, like in your living room. And that's,
yes.
You don't need to use lights then, most of the time.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And a few of our walls, when we designed the walls, we had windows in the interior walls, so that would let light into back rooms. So again, reducing the need for lighting. Yeah, yeah.
Wonderful. So I think we've talked about everything. We've got about 5 more minutes. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you'd like to touch on?
Let's see. Main features. Well, not really. I mean, the main thing is we moved away from, of course, fossil fuels means going electric, but it's important that you change your source of electricity as well. Your supplier, and that's limited in Japan. The options for which electricity supplier, green suppliers of electricity, are still quite limited in Japan.
I just did it. You can do it.
Yeah, you can do it, but
My Mizu, the
yes,
application to find your water. So
yeah,
they did a collaboration with
okay,
Shizen Denki, and
yeah,
you can go to the website and you can choose 100% renewable, and then you pay your local TEPCO or whatever your local electric
yep,
company is, but
yep,
they have to buy it from the renewable energy. So
good,
you are supporting 100% renewable as well. It
yeah.
is possible.
So I just wish more people would know about these schemes as well.
Yeah.
So,
It
yeah,
wasn't super easy. I've heard some people say they did it in 5 minutes. For my area, we do have solar, but of course it doesn't cover all of our electrical needs. So when I changed over, I had to call the electric company. I had to get certain numbers. So it was a little bit fiddly, but
yeah.
it took me maybe half a day at most.
Oh,
It's
okay, yeah,
not impossible. Yeah.
yes,
You
yeah,
you need to have Japanese though,
yeah.
which is always tricky.
Oh,
We have a question from Chilin Kansai. He's another Tesla driver like me. Uh,
oh,
what is the size of the solar system, and is there a battery system? If not, is there a plan to add one?
yeah. When we bought the system, battery technology, the options weren't there. Like Tesla has now a home battery kit stuff. It's wonderful options in the States. But so we got a very small battery system for emergencies. But the main system, no, we don't have a battery system. And that would be nice because that gets you off grid if you need. The system is 4.9 kilowatts.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice size one.
And like I mentioned, it produces about, on average, throughout the year, twice as much as we use. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I have only a 3 kilowatt system. And then
yeah,
if I charge my Tesla from home during the day, I feel good because it's coming from my solar. But it's, of course, not at night, and we don't have a battery yet. People always ask me, can you reverse engineer so the Tesla charges the house at night? Because Tesla is basically a big battery car, right?
it's true.
But you can't do that, apparently.
Oh,
There are some electric cars you can do that, but
oh,
not the Tesla, not yet.
okay.
Maybe
Yeah, again,
someday.
an emergency, that would be useful, of
Uh,
course. Yeah,
One
yeah.
just eco living point that I got from your Facebook is you're growing the plant that you can make a loofah from.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
That's
that's right.
great. What is the plant called?
I don't know.
Yeah, but
So
how do you do it? So you grow the plant and then you
it's
just dry it?
Yeah, I just found them. They were amongst the pumpkins and something cucumber area, which was overgrown at the time, and they just dried out. They would obviously couldn't be eaten, but I liked the look of them, and then I realized inside was the sponge, and wow, yeah. So we're growing them again this year. So
Fantastic.
I want to do, yeah, more.
And then you're using it to wash plates or to in the shower?
Yeah, you can use them. Any sponge, those plastic sponges, they will completely replace. They can replace them. They're perfect. They don't break up. They last quite a long time. Amazing, really. Yeah.
That's great. Any other eco tips that you and the family are doing?
Oh no, difficult. Sorry. Yeah, difficult to
No, that's
persuade.
fine. Molly says, I think it's called a luffa gourd, she says.
That's it.
That's it.
Yes. Yeah. And actually, when I was I know there was an article on the National Trust in England were promoting this as an idea. It was on a news program. Yeah, but yeah, and anyone in the city can do it because it's a vine. So yeah, it looks like like a cucumber, but the season is much longer. It takes longer to grow. So
And you also have some activists in the house. Your daughter did a change.org campaign. Is that right? How did that
uh,
go?
Yeah, well, I try and get them involved as much as possible. They there was a tree, local tree, got cut down, and my daughters made a sign, a kind of rest in peace sign about all the shade that's been. Thank you for all the shade and everything they gave us, just to make the locals feel a bit guilty.
Oh,
And they
that's
do
nice.
that. Of course, they clean the beach quite often. So yeah, small things.
That's great.
Yeah.
And then this was about reducing plastic packaging. So
Which
change.org that you shared, was that one of your daughters or one of your students was doing that campaign?
that was both my daughter and I think the student. That was the students. I think did that mostly. Yeah.
So communicating back to the companies about what you want to see as consumers and less packaging is, of course, a great part of the process.
Yes.
Really
Yeah.
nice to see that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the campaigns in other countries where you take back your plastic to the supermarket and say, okay, thank you, here it is.
Yeah. I know that TerraCycle is active in Japan, and they do take back some of the plastic that is hard to recycle, and then they work with the companies, and they also have a loop system where they're trying to get started for the home delivery for shopping and then
Okay.
reuse all the containers. So hopefully that'll come more around Japan. I think they're just piloting it now, maybe.
Okay, yeah, I haven't seen any products with that yet, but in England I've seen TerraCycle, but yeah, not yet here. But
Yeah.
it's good. Things will come slowly.
I hope so. The more we have examples like yours, and the more we have activism by students and your children, that really helps a lot. So thank you so much for all you're doing and sharing your story with us. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you very much.
If people want to learn more, let's give your website, your blog about the house. Are you
Please,
keeping that up?
I try to. Please do share, yeah. And that would be my tip actually, is just do the things you think you want to do, like, taking your chopsticks to restaurant, your own chopsticks. People notice, and yeah, that's an education. Educate others, maybe passively, would be my tip. Yeah.
And always asking politely if things are possible, right? Is it okay to get that without a straw, please? Like, do it really nicely. Or can I use my own bag? Or can I use my own container? Just keep asking. And if no, okay, no problem, right?
That's right. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much. And if you're interested, I will put the link below for the Shiga Eco House project. And you have lots of great photos there, lots of good explanation. I think people will be able to find links to how to do it themselves. So thank you so much for doing that. That's a great resource.
Thank you very much. And thank you for inviting me today. It's been fun.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. And join us again tomorrow, 9:30. We're talking to John Walsh. He is an urban gardening coach in Tokyo, helping people make food on their balconies and gardens. So please join us again tomorrow. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good day. Take care. Bye.